Hey, Tubies. Hey, Insta friends. This is Bob Hickman. It is so good to be with you. Well, I'm sitting here. I've been looking at my little toy aliens here. I might have shown these to you in another video, but for those of you who haven't seen it, I got these recently at the dollar store, and I just think they're a lot of fun. They're little glow Martians. You can see their big eyes. Anyways, they're actually patterned off the gray aliens. They call these ones Martians, but really they're gray aliens. But they glow in the dark, which is kind of cool. Glow Martians, glows in the dark. Aren't they great? I got to take them out of their package and put them around my house. I think that'll freak people out. They come over and they'll see a little glowing thing floating up in the corner. Anyways, I'm so glad to be here with you. Well, I promised you guys today we would talk about the aliens, about the UFO phenomena. And, for those of you who are new here, you may not know, I'm a full-time professional psychic medium, and I do readings all day long. And, I guess I'll give a plug here. If you want to get on my schedule, you can call my office at 571-483-2112, and you can get on my schedule. I still have readings open starting next week. So, anyways, give me a call. I do phone readings and in person, so either way, there's no difference. Some people say, well, is it better in person or by phone? It doesn't matter. It's the same, because when I open the channel, Spirit's present. So, anyways, you might want to do that if you want some psychic help. But a lot of things I always seem to see is that, when I do my readings, I notice trends, and lately it seems I've been encountering people who have either, one, had an alien encounter, seen a UFO, or they believe in it. They've grown up believing in it, maybe have known people that have seen a UFO or had some type of encounter. And, it's interesting. It got me thinking about the concept of aliens coming to Earth. And, I really think that we are really at a crossroads right now where we are really going to soon have full disclosure. A few years ago, I put out a book which was known as When Worlds Unite. That was the title. And I'll put the links below if you want to go to my website and look at that. But in that book, I did talk about the coming alien phenomena, the disclosure that's coming. And I tell you, as I watch the world, it really is becoming much more apparent to me that we're very much close to that now. It's funny we're talking about this because recently I was watching an episode of Star Trek. And I don't know if you guys know, on YouTube you can actually get full episodes of Star Trek. I love it. And, so I started watching some of the old Star Trek episodes. This is from the original series that was out in the late 60s. When I grew up in the 1970s, we were all watching Star Trek. And it was very much the big thing all over the country back then. And, one of the things that it got me thinking about this was that in the TV series, they talk about the Prime Directive. And Starfleet Command, that's the organization that runs the Enterprise and the exploration of the planets. They have a thing called the Prime Directive. And what that is that the Starfleet Federation will not interfere in culture's evolution. They won't kind of introduce false technology or introduce technology ahead of time or do anything to disrupt a culture. And it's very interesting. It got me thinking about that. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that is a guiding principle of the alien races. Because, throughout the years I've been encountering people who have said, Bob, I've seen the aliens, but they seem to be holding back. I've talked to military personnel who've said, yes, Bob, the American government knows about, but they're keeping it out of the public's way to prevent panic. And some people have told me that the military, the aliens have told the military, we will not interfere with your world because we don't want to offset your culture. So it's as if the alien cultures are recognizing and perhaps honoring a Prime Directive. But in the TV series Star Trek, there are occasions when the Prime Directive gets broken, and they kind of show the results. I watched an episode recently where the Enterprise crew went to a world that was based on the 1920s gangster culture. In the United States in the 1920s, there was a lot of mafia and a lot of mob violence during the Prohibition times. Well, anyways, this was an interesting episode because the planet evolved into a gangster culture based on the 1920s. And the Star Trek Enterprise crew went in to find out kind of what went wrong, what's going on. That planet is, they're getting hostile, a lot of violence from what they'd heard. And what they found out was that a previous visiting crew from Starfleet who had visited the planet several years before, one of the members left behind a book they were reading about the 1920s mobster culture. And they left the book accidentally on the planet, and some of the people found it and started reading it. And then they said, wow, this is really neat. And they were a very kind of a backwards culture, not very evolved. But studying that book, they learned to create automobiles. So they had cars like the 1920s. They started wearing the clothes like the 20s. And the whole culture was patterned after this book. People that were in power really found this fascinating and started encouraging people to read this. So the whole planet evolved in a Earth 1920s scenario. It was very fascinating. And it got me thinking, when we had the Roswell crash back in 1947, some of you guys may remember that. If you don't know about that, look that up. But out in Roswell, New Mexico, an alien craft allegedly crashed in the desert, actually crashed on somebody's ranch. And from what I understand, that there were alien bodies found alive, and the ship was still pretty much intact. Well, the American government, had to hush that up. They sent out a bunch of military people, and they kind of cordoned off the area and took everything out of that area. Well, it's very interesting because after that, shortly, American technology started to change very rapidly. It wasn't too long after that we started having transistor radios, whereas before we had, the tubes, the like electric tube radios. Well, now they created little transistors that could power radios and receive signals. And a lot of people speculate that was kind of an industrial complex push based on some of that alien technology. And if we study the development of technology over the last 30, 40 years, there's been an incredibly fast growth and in a very rapid acceleration and growth in a very short time. And again, now, I'm not saying humans aren't intelligent, but makes you wonder if some of the evolution in technology has come out of those alien cultures. Something to think about. So, when we talk about that Prime Directive, you see, I thought of that Star Trek episode. I thought, that is very, very interesting because maybe our planet has evolved in a certain direction because of alien contamination. Their technology from the down saucer, if that's true, which I personally believe it is. I've been to Roswell, and I've met people and talked to people who were there at the time and connected to that. If that's true, which I do think it is, then this is an example of the Prime Directive violation and how it's affecting our world. So when we talk about Star Trek, yes, it's science fiction and it's fictional, but some of the concepts in that are really true philosophical ideas. And I think that's what made that show so wonderful, is that they didn't just have, special effects. They really went for the philosophy. And I think that's what makes Star Trek such a wonderful series, because it asks the deeper questions, What does interaction between alien worlds look like? What happens to each planet from that interaction? These are questions I've been meditating on because, I do believe that very soon, within just a couple of years, if not sooner, we are going to have full-scale disclosure of the alien presence. Now, you guys have heard me say before, there's nothing to panic. They've already been here. They've been watching this for probably thousands of years, really, and they're not going to hurt us. But what I'm curious about is when that revelation occurs, what is that going to look like in terms of our culture? How will we evolve as a people? How will we evolve not only technologically, but spiritually, philosophically? Very, very interesting, very, very important questions I think all of us who have interest in this subject must consider. Now, it goes both ways, because what is the impact on the alien cultures that we interact with? For example, let's say as we are doing our explorations, we discover a planet that is a planet of peaceful people. Let's say they don't even know what weapons are. Well, if Earthlings go there and we bring technology and show them how to make guns or lasers or things like that, then a formerly peaceful culture had no concept of violence or war may suddenly be tempted to experiment with weapons and starting fights. You see? So we could corrupt a culture as well as our culture being corrupted. So we always think about, well, the alien technology changing us, and maybe our technology will change them. And I think throughout time, if we study history, there's always this interesting experience that occurs when cultures kind of cross. The Native American cultures were really decimated when the Europeans came to North America, because they brought with them all the diseases, smallpox and, all the other things that they didn't have exposure to. And so there was a lot of cultural destruction. Then the European religion came, and it damaged the Native American spiritual traditions. And now, fortunately, we are in a time where people are starting to recognize, the inherent value of indigenous culture and starting to rebuild that. And I live very close to the National Museum for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Native American, the National Indian Museum. And, I'm so thankful that we have that, because, the Native American cultures here in North America are really something that needs to be preserved. It's a culture that was really destroyed. And fortunately, there are enough people who wanted to save it, and the tribal elders remember the teachings, and it's coming back. So even in our own planet, the Prime Directive is something we have to think about. But anyways, I've been studying this, and I want to bring this thought to you guys today, because I do believe that we are going to see a lot more interaction soon. I think it's really, as I said, a combination of the aliens holding back and perhaps our governments asking them to hold back. But eventually that's going to break. And how that looks, I'll tell you as a psychic, it's going to go two ways. We're either going to have total panic and chaos, or it's going to be a time of great enlightenment and learning. And I'm on the side of hoping for enlightenment and learning. And I hope that everybody here at Spirit Channel will kind of look within themselves. I encourage you to think about yourself. How will you react to an alien culture coming to the earth? Will you embrace them? Will you know them? Will you reject them? If they come in peace, which I believe they will, it's sad, because a lot of us who are peace-loving people will get that message and be willing to interact. But then there could be powers that be, such as governments, who interfere with that process and create panic and fear. So this is a time where each of us have to look within ourselves and consider, what is our core value? Are we willing to meet our alien brethren, our space brethren, halfway and make the friendship? Can we do that? I think they're going to try to do that. I hope we can do that too. It's interesting. I've been reading or watching a video, actually. I want to get the book. There's a guy I want you to look up. I'll put a link below here, Charles Hall. He's a scientist, a physicist, but he also worked in the early years as an Army engineer. And he had direct encounters at at Area 51 in Nevada with the aliens that are residing there. Area 51 is a secret military base. Well, it's not so secret now because everybody knows about it. But at that time, it really was very secret. But he worked on the base, and he was actually able to directly encounter the aliens. Now, some of you may say, oh, that guy's just blowing steam. But listen, I want you to watch the videos, some of the videos. I'm going to put links below. This man is very credible. He's made no real profit from this association. He now has books out, but in his interviews, he seems very credible. Anyways, he talks about three races. That's one of the things I want to talk about, the three races. One are the Greys. We've talked about those here on this channel. That's the aliens with the big eyes. There's also another race, which is known as the Nordics, and I've talked about them. Those are from the Pleiades, the Pleiadians, and they look exactly like humans, except they're a little taller. They're very blonde, very Norwegian, very Nordic looking. They're called the Nordics. But there's a third race, which I don't really know a lot about. I've been starting to research. Maybe some of you know about this. It's the tall white aliens. And the tall white aliens are very interesting. They're humanoid in appearance, except their skin is chalk white, and they have eyes that are kind of large, like almond-shaped eyes that are, I believe they're blue-colored. But the rest of them look pretty much human, normal hands, feet, legs, body, standing upright. But their skin is literally white as chalk. Anyways, from what Charles Hall talks about in his interviews, he basically says that these are a peaceful race. They've been exploring the cosmos. And he said when they first came to the Earth, they were terrified of humans. And I think that's very interesting because from what I understand, their world is a peaceful world. They don't do war. And they found humans very aggressive and violent. So they're even to this day, they're a little scared of talking to humans. And from what I heard is they were terrified of seeing human appearance. They thought humans looked very strange. Very fascinating. Well, anyways, the tall white aliens, they grow to be about 8 to 10 feet tall. Now, what's interesting is they live a much longer lifespan than humans. They live to be about 6 to 800 years old is what they say. And they basically, for the first 400 years, they're about normal height as humans, about 5'10", 5'11". But after they hit age 400, they start to, instead of aging like we do, they don't really age, they still stay young looking, but they grow taller to the 8 and 10 feet tall, so you can tell their ages basically by their height. But after they get that large, from what I understand from Charles Hall, is they have internal struggles because their skeletal system grows, but it cannot be supported by the internal organs, and they start to have organ failure, and they usually die in the 800-year range. Very, very fascinating. But that's another alien race you might want to look up. Look up, they're called the Tall Whites. So far we've been able to, pretty much confirm, I think, that there are at least 3 different races of aliens visiting the Earth. The Greys from Zeta Reticuli, which is a star system in the Andromeda Galaxy. We've got the Nordics from the Pleiades star system, and then the Tall Whites. And I don't remember exactly where they come from. I'll have to look that up. But, they also come from several light years away. And what's interesting is Charles Hall, who's a physicist, says that their ships are able to travel faster than the speed of light. And through his interactions with them, he's even learned that Einstein's theory of relativity should be expanded on even beyond what he's done, because he said the speed of light has been surpassed, and that now changes the whole dynamic of time, space, continuums, energies, all of that. I'm not a physicist, so that's a little beyond me, some of it. Some of you may understand that, but definitely I want you to look up Charles Hall because he is absolutely, absolutely fascinating. Anyways, guys, listen, I'm going to wrap it up. I know I'm rambling, but these are ideas that have been on my mind, and I want to share them with you. I want to tell you guys, for those of you who've seen aliens, you're not crazy. It's really happening. And we're going to start to see more of that. And I would love to hear in the box below, tell me, do you believe in aliens and UFOs? Have you ever seen one? Have you heard about the tall whites? Share your thoughts below with me. I'd love to hear from all of you. Anyways, I'm so glad you're here. Listen, keep it here. We got more videos coming. And for those of you who don't know, join me on Instagram as well. I'm doing daily updates over there. We do a daily tarot reading. I'm doing a series on runes. We're going to start doing some magic spells over there. And I also do celebrity predictions. And in fact, every Wednesday at Instagram is Celebrity Predictions Day. So I list a few celebrities and give predictions, and you don't want to miss that. So I do have one up there now if you want to go check it out. So my name on Instagram is Psychic Bob. Just type in, search for users, Psychic Bob, PSYCHICBOB, all one word, okay? Anyways, I'll put the Instagram link below as well. But in case you're somewhere you can't get to that link, just go to Instagram, type in Psychic Bob, okay? Anyways, guys, listen, I'm so glad to be here with you, and I'd love to hear any more thoughts or experiences you have about the coming disclosure of the alien presence and any experiences or thoughts you have, and also your ideas about the Prime Directive. So share some of your thoughts with me below. I'm so glad you're here, and I send you my blessings. Keep it here. We got more videos coming in the coming days. Blessings to you all.